This is actually my stepmom's story. She told my sister and I this experience growing up to scare us out of being stupid. It was my family's stranger danger story. From here on out, I'll refer to my stepmom as Macy. Macy grew up as a kind of privileged teen in the 70s. Her mom had moved their family over here to the States from England when she was about 9. She went to a nice high school in a really nice town. There, she made friends with a girl named Lily, who didn't really run with Macy's type of crowd, which was your stereotypical popular kids. Despite this, Macy and Lily really hit it off, and Lily would take Macy out to do her type of stuff, like hiking, fishing, and other outdoor activities that Macy wasn't normally accustomed to. One Sunday, they decided to go hiking in some hills about an hour away. Macy put on what I'm sure were her extremely expensive hiking shoes, and the two of them drove off to the trail. Lily parked in a big clearing with the makeshift parking spots, like a log marking each space, but there were no other cars there. This was only important in hindsight. They started hiking up the hill, off the path because Lily fancied herself as something of a badass and loved exploring the road less traveled. After a good while, they reached the top of the hill and my stepmom was done. The polished, pampered side of her was coming out, and she groaned until Lily begrudgingly said okay. They would rest and then walk down again, slower, back to the car. They had been heading down the hill for maybe 10 minutes when Macy started complaining again. Lily conceded to walking down the side of the road instead of a rough hiking trail. So there they are, probably looking like a couple of out-of-place city girls, geared up for hiking and walking down the road, when after not even 5 minutes, a truck pulled up next to them. It was red and rusty, and just generically looked like a clunker. The guy driving rolled down the passenger side window, and the girls looked in through. He had a big beard, a baseball cap pulled down, and long brown hair. He greeted them and even smiled through his beard, asking if they needed a ride. Macy described him as charming and even cute. Lily still says the moment he greeted them, something seemed off. Despite her better judgment, my stepmom convinced her to get into the truck. "It must only be a 10-minute drive down to the car, tops," she said. The two girls opened the passenger door to the rusty old thing, and the guy directed them behind the seat to get into the back. They settled in, and the truck started rumbling forward. Lily always says that was the point it hit her what a mistake they had just made. The back seat was clean enough, but there was a rope on the floor behind the driver's seat and 4 boxes of saran wrap half hanging out under the passenger seat. It seemed creepy and weird, but Lily didn't want to freak my stepmom out, so she just kept her mouth shut. After 10 minutes, the woods didn't look any clearer, and they hadn't seen another car the whole time. Lily asked how long he thought it would be. He said he was taking a different route down the hill and had to stop somewhere to get something first. That was it. The girls were 16 and 17, and Lily didn't want to press the issue. She was scared. She can remember his hair because she was sitting behind him. He looked like a woodsy guy, and his hair was super tangled and dirty. She noticed crusted mud on his collar and tried to find something identifiable about him, but just got scared the more she picked up on little details. He was youngish, strong looking, and had a foot on both of them, so they didn't ask any more questions, and he didn't offer any information as they drove on. Several minutes after that, they reached a tiny shack-like log cabin in a clearing of trees. There was an old stump where someone had been chopping wood and a huge axe stuck in the log. Lily was definitely on red alert now. The guy turned off the truck and slipped out of it, saying, "I'll be right back, don't get out," and he disappeared into the house. Lily tried to talk to my stepmom about how she was extremely uncomfortable, but Macy mostly dismissed it. Lily started begging, increasingly freaked out, and finally put her foot down, demanding Macy exit the truck with her. So they got out and walked around the front of the vehicle. The house was about 50 yards in front of them. Why this guy would have left 2 young girls in the truck alone while going into the house is beyond me, but they wandered around, looking at it hesitantly. If this guy really was decent and just wanted to give them a ride, it would be super rude just to run off, right? Well, that's what Lily was thinking. But my stepmom had this strict upbringing when it came to manners and a public persona, and she saw them running off when this guy said he was trying to help them as an issue of that nature. So she actually started to head back to the truck, not to be rude, opening the front door to climb in behind the driver's seat. Lily was pissed off and followed her to yell some more. On the driver's side floor, half hidden under the seat, there's a big hatchet. Its reddish brown stains covered the blade, dried and sticking to the floor under it. Lily understandably lost it, and seeing it, my stepmom started getting hysterical as well. They decided that leaving was by far the best option at this point, and just booked it off the side of the property into the trees. They fumbled around in the trees for a little while, until Lily was fairly confident that they were on their way back down the hill in the right direction. My stepmom cried all the way down. Lily felt bad about it, but was completely freaked out that he would hear the crying and kept trying to calm her down. When they finally got back down to the bottom and saw the old wooden fence that surrounded the original parking area, they were relieved. But as they got closer, they saw it. The truck. It was parked on the other side of the gravel lot, just sitting there, facing the opposite direction away from their car. They couldn't see if anyone was in it, and of course Macy wanted to run for the car, but Lily was super hesitant. She managed to calm my stepmom down, saying she wanted to wait before running out into the open to see what was out there. Remember, this is the 70s, no cell phones, there is no ranger station or anyone around. The parking lot was big and empty and open. Who knows what would have happened if they decided to stroll across it. Thankfully, Lily convinced my stepmom to chill, and the two of them hunkered down against a big tree, hidden by bushes and other trees, and waited it out for what seemed like a couple of hours. When darkness started to fall, all the animals started coming out, making noises, and my stepmom predictably started getting antsy about this and bothering Lily, who was tired and moments away from giving in. She was just planning their dash to the car when they heard a clunk across the twilight-lit lot. They watched as one of the back doors of their car swung open, and the bearded guy slid his way out of the back seat. He got out and shut the door, looked around at the surrounding woods for several moments, and then walked back to his truck. The truck lumbered past their car and out of sight. Several minutes after, watching him drive away, they sprinted to their car as fast as they could, jumped in and peeled out before they have even shut the doors. To this day they wonder, what was this man's intentions, and what would he have done if they have gotten into their car not knowing he was laying hidden in their back seat.
This is a true story. About 2 years ago, my boyfriend at the time and I decided to go on a hike right before the sunset. Which, yes, sounds dumb, but it's something we had done multiple times before with no issues. There was something about the eeriness of the woods at night that I liked. My boyfriend, not so much. We start our hike. We had to go through really tall plants and bushes. We were practically in the middle of nowhere. About a mile into the hike, we came across some abandoned structures and sat down to take a breather. I'm not sure exactly what my boyfriend said to make me do this, but as a joke, I whistled and said, "See, nothing," whistled back. "We're alone." Not even 20 seconds after saying that, we heard a whistle. It sounded a little distant from us, but still too close for our liking. We immediately started booking it in the opposite direction of the whistle and didn't look back. After running for as long as we could, we realized we were lost. We wandered around for about 10 minutes before we stumbled across some train tracks that led back into town about a mile or two down the way. It's important to note that these tracks had thick woods lining both sides. The woods on the right side of the tracks is where we came from. At this point, we were walking as we had run out of energy and felt safe. We were wrong to assume that we were safe. We got to the point where we could see the lights from town, maybe a quarter to a half a mile away. Down the tracks a little bit, we could very faintly see the outline of what looked to be a deer coming out of the right side of the woods. It stopped in the middle of the tracks and just stood there. I attempted to shine my flashlight, but all I had was a cheap flashlight I had grabbed last minute from the back of my junk drawer before we left home, and it was very dim. Regardless, as soon as I lifted my light up, it fled. Now, I say fled because ran would not be an accurate way to describe the way it moved. The best way I can describe it is that it looked like it had 4 broken legs, and its body was very low to the ground, yet it had unbelievable speed. It almost looked like a bent and twisted monster out of a horror movie. I shined my light into the woods to the left of us, as that's where it had scurried off. And when I did, I saw 2 glowing eyes that looked to be at least 10 feet in the air. My boyfriend said, "What is that?" in a very concerned tone. I told him, "I don't know. Don't just look at it, just run." We ran and ran until eventually we reached town and walked back home. This happened about 2 years ago, and I've tried to come up with a logical explanation of what I saw that night. And still to this day, I can never find a solid, logical answer other than it being something paranormal. I refused to believe what I had seen for a long time, but I know what I saw, and I know I'm not crazy, as there was another person that witnessed the same thing as me. My boyfriend never spoke of it again, and refused to speak about it when I would try and bring it up. I never go hiking at night now because of this experience. The story is unfortunately true. I grew up in the Sierra Nevadas. I wasn't big on camping, but spent a good chunk of my childhood weekends hiking with family and friends. The summer that I was 16, about 10 years ago, my cousin Carol had come back from her first year of college, and her boyfriend Jacob was visiting. Jacob wanted to go on a hike with lake views, and Carol and I knew just the one. It was one of our favorites. The 3 of us set off on this hike. The trail isn't the easiest to find, but it's really popular with locals because of the view and the general lack of tourists. We saw a couple of other hikers, some with dogs. It is an in and out trail that takes about 2 to 3 hours to the top, 2 to 3 hours back down. There are some smaller trails that branch off as well. We make it to the top in good time and enjoy our lunches overlooking the lake. After about an hour, we hear a scream in the distance, specifically a mountain lion scream. If you've never heard a mountain lion scream, it's really unnerving. It sounds a bit like a very loud, terrified woman screaming. This is not good because when a mountain lion screams, it's part of a mating ritual. That means there are multiple mountain lions and close. The bears in the Sierras are softies, but the mountain lions will attack you. They'll attack your pets. They've even been known to attack bikers. Jacob was really freaked out. Carol and I were wary, but it wasn't the first time we had heard mountain lions, and we'd both seen them before. Carol and I tell Jacob that we need to pack it up and get back down the mountain. About 40 minutes into the hike back, Jacob realized that he forgot his phone at the lookout in his rush to leave. Of course. We decided that Carol and Jacob would hike back up to retrieve his phone, and I would stay there on the trail to warn any other potential hikers that there are lions in the area. This is obviously not ideal for any of us, but seemed like the best choice at the time. I found a nice rock to sit on by the trail and was going through the pictures we took. Carol and Jacob had been gone for around 15 minutes when I heard the scream again. And it's hard to tell, but I think it's closer than before. I start to freak out because being alone is not good if the lion is nearby. About 20 minutes after that, I hear the scream again. And there is now zero doubt in my mind. It's closer. Logically, I know that lions don't scream when hunting. They're quiet. If a lion was hunting me, I wouldn't know it. That knowledge did not make me less scared. A couple minutes after that, I hear it again, extremely close by. I'm looking around and trying to find the best place for me to stand back covered in preparation for the worst. Suddenly, I see something out of the corner of my eye. Standing still 20 feet away and just off the trail is a man. He's completely naked. He's filthy. He's skinny. And he's just standing there looking at me. If you don't know where you're going, it's easy to get lost in the woods around there. And it doesn't take long being alone, lacking food and water in the wilderness to make people a little disoriented, a little crazy. My immediate response is that this man is probably a lost hiker. And judging by how dirty he was, he had been lost a long time. He needs help. I started walking towards him, asking if he's okay. I suddenly get this feeling of wrongness. I don't know how else to describe it, but the hair stood up on my neck. I stopped in my tracks maybe 15 feet away now and had the overwhelming urge to run. It seemed wrong. He looked wrong in a way I can't quite articulate. Instead of wanting to help, I'm now scared. I ask again if he's okay. He looks at me, then opens his mouth wide and screams. Not a normal scream. He screamed so loudly. Worse, it sounded just like the mountain lion. It occurred to me that we were probably hearing him the whole time. It was the single most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. I started screaming too. Why was he just standing there screaming? Do I run? Do I get out the bear mace? Suddenly, he closed his mouth, turned around, and ran into the woods very quickly. He disappeared into the trees, but the feeling of wrongness was still with me. I considered bolting down the train, but decided to wait for Carol and Jacob, who luckily arrived within 10 or 15 minutes. I told them what happened, and we decided to call it into the Rangers when we got service. I've always been left with the unsettling question. Did I see a mentally ill lost hiker who really needed my help? Or did I see something else, something not human, mimicking the call of a mountain lion and stalking us down the mountain?